Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free, the free, and the home of the
Well, before you leave, thank you for being here. Mrs. McKnight, thank you for bringing your students. Thank you for your presence and thank you for filling our boardroom with amazing music and for all you guys do. So have a great night. Thank you. Yes, glad to have you. All right, we will go ahead and move to item 1.3, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is introduction of our student board member, Rachel Phipps. And I believe Mr. Allen is doing the introduction.
Yeah, normally I do, but Mr. Allen made a request to intro this special student board member. So go ahead, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I made the request to introduce Rachel because Rachel was my son's first girlfriend in kindergarten. It was preschool. She didn't officially dump him until last year. So it was a 16-year or so relationship. Rachel Phipps is a senior at Spring Creek High School. She is currently enrolled in the AP Government and AP Psychology. Rachel is the SCHS senior class president. She currently has a 4.4 GPA. Rachel plans to attend Baylor University in the fall and study elementary education. Rachel is an outstanding kid. She was one of my favorites when I was at Spring Creek High School. She's done a lot of good things and she will continue to do great things in the future, even if she has a brother who's kind of sketchy. Thanks for being here, Rachel.
Well, Rachel, welcome. We are glad to have you here and I will second that. Rachel's amazing. So, all right, we'll move on to item 1.5, receive a presentation from the EHS Theater Club.
Hello, my name is Layla Bowers and I am the president of the Elko High School Theater Club, Thespian Troop 309. We wanted to present to the board tonight because March was Theaters in Schools Month. I would like to introduce to you Cassie Allen, Ashley Sandoval, Miley Simons, Peyton Finlayson, and Noelle Cooper.
Theater in Our Schools Month is a national campaign that aims to raise public awareness about the benefits of theater education and the importance of programs in schools. Theater in Schools Month encourages schools to showcase their theater programs by hosting performances, workshops, and other events throughout the month. It is an opportunity for students, teachers, parents, and community members to come together and celebrate the power of theater education. This year, we have been able to do a pop-up show for a few elementary schools. A few of us have done radio interviews and are featured in the school newspaper. And we are so happy to be presenting for you tonight.
As you can see, one of our major troop goals this year is theater advocacy. We want everyone to know the importance of theater in our lives. Theater education offers a wide range of benefits to students, including collaboration skills, creativity, communication skills, empathy, cultural understanding, and finally, self-confidence. I'm lucky enough to be an example of how one's self-confidence has been strengthened. I joined drama club last year because I was in Mrs. Hoskins' English class. She said that she needed help with crew. I told her that I would join and only help with crew, that I would never be on stage. Fast forward to this year when I have had a lead role, co-directed and acted in my own show, and became the state Poetry Out Loud winner, and now get to go to nationals. As you can see, theater has really brought me out of my shell.
Theater also benefits core instructions, as you can see from the chart. As student stage manager, I can really see how this affects students, including myself. I've personally learned so much about communication and self-expression. I have learned about time periods when working with different show sets, makeup, and costuming. The tech really does pull in the math and science skills. We are constantly looking at different angles and measurements with set construction and lighting.
Which brings us right into theater technology. We are so grateful to have the ability to learn and work with theater tech. Our tech classes provide all of the lighting, sound, set construction, and design, prop making, costuming, hair, and makeup for all of our shows. These technical skills are real-world skills that we can take with us after high school. I'm a freshman this year and I'm in drama. However, through participating in all of the shows this year, I have learned that I love tech. So next year, I plan to take tech and to learn more about all of the tech, especially lights. I'm so excited for this opportunity.
Theater education provides students with many opportunities, such as participation in school productions, competitions, and festivals, and career opportunities. As we have demonstrated this evening, when students participate in theater, they gain so much. Along with acting and all the tech jobs, we also have student producers, student directors, and stage managers in all of our productions. Those roles provide students with so many learning opportunities. Theater education can also lead to future career opportunities in the entertainment industry, whether it be in acting, directing, producing, or technical theater. This was our first year our troupe was able to attend regionals in state, joining with Wells. It was such an amazing experience for us to meet other thespians from around the state. We made new friends, and our very own Cassie is now representing us on the student state board. We are really looking forward to going next year, and we hope that more schools and districts will join the International Thespian Society. Now we'll have other students take a minute to share how theater has changed their lives.
Again for allowing us this time to present to you this evening. We hope that you will join us for our first musical, Peter Pan, on May 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Elko High School Performing Arts Theater. And thank you for not only supporting theater in Elko County School District, but for performing arts in general. They all make a huge difference in our lives. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presentation, and we love to see the different avenues that you are taking in theater. So thank you. Glad to have you and excited to come see your production of Peter Pan. All right, we'll move on to item 1.6, recognition of ECSD STEM Fair Grand Prize winner, Sophia Guyton.
Hi, I'm James Brawley, one of the co-directors for the STEM Fair, along with Anita Collins and Alicia Moore over there. So this year's STEM Fair had 461 projects with over 572 students participating. The 3 grand prize winners will be getting to go to Dallas, Texas for the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair, which is really a cool event, and that'll be May 14th to 19th. And so Sophia is going to present her project. She was one of the grants.
You're good. Welcome, Sophia. Glad to have you here.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Sophia Guyton. The title for my project is Writing Really Necessary? One of the things I would change in this project would be the title. So my project is about memory. So my scientific question was, does writing improve memory? So I didn't do research first because I wanted to see what I was interested in. What I was interested in was the mind. So while everyone else was doing volcano projects or seeing if an egg would fall on the ground, I wanted to see something with the mind. And I haven't seen any projects with the mind lately, so I was like, why can't I? After I did my research, I realized there's 2 categories in memory. There's long-term memory and short-term memory. Short-term memory is when you process information after a short period of time. So it's happening right now. So as you guys are looking at my board right now, you're processing short-term memory. Whether you want to remember that is up to you guys based on emotion or whether it will help you in the future. So if you remember that information for longer, it goes into long-term memory, which is the second category of memory. After looking at the 2 categories, I realized that if I wanted to test whether writing improves memory in general, I couldn't test both categories because I would have to wait about a year because that's about the information for long-term memory to process. For short-term memory, it's about seconds to minutes. So I decided to change my question to, does writing improve short-term memory? So after I realized that change, I had to do further research. So when I looked at the project and when I was trying to figure out how am I going to experience this, I looked into how forgetfulness happens. Raise your hand if you've forgotten one thing. Everyone should have raised their hands because everyone did. Forgetting is, when we say the word forgetting, we think that the memory is lost or we can't just retrieve the information anymore. Psychologists believe that the information is still in your mind. However, there has to be some cues for it to be accessed again. So it's still in your mind, but you need something to help you refresh your memory. Whether if, for example, if you take a test, right, you're studying for the test, you got the information in your head. When you're finally gonna do the test, you realize, I don't remember anything because that's the pressure of it. But once you start reading the questions, you're like, oh, I remember this because I was studying. So those are the cues that you look out for when you're trying to remember stuff. And that's what psychologists believe when retrieving memory. So when I was looking at if writing improves short-term memory, writing, for the reason why we write, we have motor skills, touch sensations, and different areas of the brain working together. So I think you might have heard the myth of you're only using one side of your brain. That's not true. You're actually using every part of your brain to work together on what you're focusing on. So for writing, you're using multiple areas of your brain, and it causes a better focus on what you're learning about. So after I did research on that, my hypothesis was writing would improve short-term memory. I finally got to the experiment part. I had to print two different sets of 15 images right here. That's the first one, and that's the second one. The first one was giving the first 15 images to 10 students. After giving the first image to 10 students, I also gave them a lined piece of paper. When I gave them the lined piece of paper and the images, I started the timer and I told them, okay, do not worry about speed, focus on memorization. So they focused on memorization. They started writing down what they saw from the piece of paper right there within a minute. After the minute passes, I would take away both the first page and their lined piece of paper. Once I took away those two, I would ask them, hey, what do you remember? And then I would write them down. Most people were able to get at least 5. That was the minimum. The top was 15. 15 out of 15. That's pretty good. So after I looked into it, I realized that the average was 8 if you rounded it. It was 7.8 for the average, but if you round it because of images, it would be 8. Same thing with median. I also rounded it to 8. So both average and median was 8. The reason why we calculate the median is because we need to eliminate outliers. Outliers are the abnormalities in a data set. So after I looked into that, I finally went into the second part of the experiment. The second part of the experiment was giving them a different set of 15 images. After I gave them a second set of 15 images, they would not get a lined piece of paper this time. This was in-mind memorization. After they got in-mind memorization down, whether that's repeating it in their head or saying it out loud in an orderly fashion, anything would have worked. Someone actually did a creative way. They actually made a storyline out of the images, and I was amazed how well they remembered based on that. But minimum was also 5 and maximum was 15. But more students got 15 out of 15 in mind memorization in short-term memory. Therefore, what I figured out was writing results was a lot less than in mind memorization results. So the average was 10 for the second test, and the median was 9, rounded as well. So if we looked into it, we can already see that it was already lower, and my hypothesis was already proven wrong. However, I had to also look into things in my conclusion, which is, hey, what would you do differently? Or, hey, did you do something wrong? So after I looked into it, I realized pressure, time, repetition, and other types of forgetfulness that I wasn't aware of. So if we really looked into it, would you be able to write 15 images, memorize them all within 1 minute? It seems hard, difficult. Some people were able to get it, but they were also having a difficult time recalling the information. In my memorization, however, you would only be focusing on the images. So if you were to get a piece of paper within 15 images and memorize all of those within a minute, you think, hey, this is much easier because there's no pressure involved in writing everything down. So I realized that pressure was definitely an aspect to this. And when it comes to pressure, I realized that writing was also at a disadvantage when it comes to in-mind memorization with short-term memory. In-mind memorization, yes, it does improve short-term memory, but when it comes to long-term memory, would you be able to remember those 15 images, writing it down or in your head? over and over and over again. So there's also 3 types of forgetfulness that I realized that could have happened to the students. First one was absent-mindedness. Has anyone read a book, read a chapter, and forgot everything about that chapter and had to reread the whole book? Yes, that's absent-mindedness. That's when you're doing something, but you're thinking of something else and not focusing on the information that is presented to you. So that is one that I realized that students could have done with my project. They could have been thinking, when is this over? Or they could have been thinking of the time in general, which is pressure. So they could have been like, oh my God, how much time do I have left? 30 seconds, 10 seconds, while they're writing it down and they're not focusing on the images, which means they're not memorizing it. There's also a different type of forgetfulness that I realized, blocking. Ever heard of the saying on the tip of your tongue? And you just can't remember, or you forgot where your car keys are and you just can't remember. Well, that's blocking. That's the most common, and it's natural with age. So when it comes to blocking, the information is just going to be gone. Yeah, I'm sorry. The information is going to just be gone for a second. And that's when cues start coming in. So you can just look at something, and if that's the location where you put your car keys, you're like, oh, I put it under the drawer. Yeah. The third type of forgetfulness is biases. So when it comes to biases, emotion, or just technically just strong emotion, strong thoughts of what's happening here. When it comes to the students, I don't think they were happy to be given 2 tests where they had to memorize stuff, and I had to do it in between classes. So yeah, I don't think they were happy about that. So there could have been strong emotions saying, oh, I just want to get this done, or they were just not feeling it. There was also one student where I had to test him in the hallway and some of his friends were there. So I had to analyze that, because turns out he didn't want to be there either. So that's what I realized when it comes to time, pressure, and repetition. When it comes to in-mind memorization and writing results, sadly, I couldn't figure out whether writing does improve short-term memory based on those outliers in the data. However, when it comes to long-term memory, I realized something. When it comes to long-term memory, thanks to pressure, time, repetition, if those aren't involved, since writing was at a disadvantage, but was so close to in-mind memorization, if you looked at the median, it's 8 and 9, which eliminates the outliers. And that's only 1. That's on average, practically. That's only 1 image off. Even with the disadvantage of time, pressure, and repetition gone, writing was still up there. Same thing with average, although it's 2 off, 8, 10. So I was thinking, hey, maybe if you were given time, if there was less pressure, like if I told them, hey, just memorize it, it's okay, take your time, and I never told them that there was a timer, maybe it could have changed. So after realizing that, when it comes to long-term memory, there is a higher chance for writing results to come in for improving long-term memory instead of short-term memory. However, in this project, when it comes to short-term memory, thanks to pressure and repetition, I can guarantee that in my memorization would improve memory. And thank you for your time.
Well, Sophia, thank you. And what a great project. I can totally see that being beneficial to teachers and the education world to understand better, hey, maybe if we take this clock away, some kids will do better. So, you know, your presentation was great. Thank you for, there you, maybe so. All right, well, thank you. And congratulations and good luck as you go to the national fair. That will be amazing. We'd love to hear back from you then. All right, item 1.7 is input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. A speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 2.1. Present Nevada Gold Mines with a recognition award for their support of the school violence prevention program. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. So before I stand up with our wonderful award here, we have a few guests with us today, and we'll ask them to come forward once I'm done speaking. But we have Alyssa Wood, Melissa Schultz, and Chris McEnany, all from representing Nevada Gold Mines, and they've been working closely with us from the time we thought about approaching them for help with this project all the way through now. And so it's no secret that funds are short for education, especially in the capital improvement realm for our school district these days. However, that doesn't change how high of a priority student and staff safety is on our campuses. Dating back to about 4 to 5 years ago, the school district was getting ready to make a pretty good push with installing cameras and single point entries and things like that for our campuses that predated, even my arrival to Elko County. But when the pandemic hit, funds were frozen and things happened. A lot of different factors contributed to some of those projects being delayed. So we're at a situation now where our campuses have varying levels of security, and there are certainly much needed technology upgrades and security upgrades at our campuses. So anyway, framing funding shortage with absolute need for safety and security, we had to start, we thought we need to think outside the box, figure out a way we can still realize this priority that we have of making our campuses safer. That we got thanks to Cassie Stalkey, our exceptional grant coordinator. Looking at you, Cassie. She did a great job securing it. It was documented about $500,000 from a federal grant to go towards this project. We're committing district general funds to the project as well, but all still coming well short. So we approached Nevada Gold Mines for some assistance. And they graciously were willing to donate $1 million over a 2-year period to help us make sure this happened at all of our campuses, not just here in Elko and then in Spring Creek and maybe in the outliers. Like we hear that often, like we are all Elko County, we all matter. And then that is absolutely accurate. And so super grateful to them. There's been a press release that documents this, and we've brought it up from time to time, but kind of some of the I's finally got dotted and T's crossed, and we're ready to move forward, such that we're ready to kind of begin some work pretty soon here, just finalizing some of those things, and then starting the summer, really getting into the nitty gritty of getting our campuses ready. So the types of upgrades we're talking about, or safety initiatives that we're working on, are installation of, I mentioned security cameras for all of our campuses, single point entry locations, transitioning our entry points to not only a single entry, but also digital access. So we're not reliant on keys and incurring costs when keys get lost and that sort of thing. So really focusing how we can restrict access to our school sites. And updating technology for expediting notification to law enforcement during incidents that we have to respond to. So making sure that precious minutes aren't lost and making sure that our campuses are safe and secure. And it feels like every time you look at the news or look in the paper on articles where we're seeing just it's a need that we have to address. And so we're very happy to do that, and super grateful to Nevada Gold Mines, to Alyssa, Melissa, Chris, and to the Nevada Gold Mines Community Development Committee, who ultimately was willing to support this project and recommend it to leadership at Nevada Gold Mines. So in addition to the ways we're going to recognize them, we did want to offer a special recognition. So what we've got here, and I'll bring it around and present it to them, but This is a very special award in my opinion, because this was made by our students at Spring Creek High School in Mr. Chris Murphy's class. It's a token of gratitude from them on behalf of our entire school district for your willingness and generosity in making sure our schools are as safe as they can possibly be. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna bring this around and present it to the three of them, and then I think Alyssa's gonna say a couple words once we're done with that. Okay. Yeah, so I guess they all haven't seen it yet, so I'm just going to do one of these.
Thank you, Vanna.
This is what it looks like. It's a little professional work done by our students. Thank you.
As CJ said, my name is Alyssa Wood. I am head of corporate social responsibility for Barrick North America, and I am pleased to be here tonight accepting this award with my colleagues on behalf of Nevada Gold Mines. At Nevada Gold Mines, we firmly believe that schools should provide a positive and safe learning environment for all students. And this school violence prevention program is going to help ensure that. But more than that, you know, it's also a response to the very sad and all too frequent stories that we see on the news. So big thanks to school district leadership, to the board of directors, to Kathy, to all those in this room for your leadership, for your dedication to seeing this initiative through, and also to Nevada Gold Mines for the clear and sizable commitment to students and student safety. And I, for one, am very proud tonight, or especially proud tonight, to be an Elko County resident and to be part of a community who puts children and student and staff safety first. So thank you very much for this recognition. This is an initiative that we have to do, as you said, CJ, and it's important for all of our schools. So thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you.
Alyssa and Chris and all of Nevada Gold Mines, thank you for your contribution to Elko County School District in this matter. You're, like you say, yeah, this is something we have to do. So thank you for making it possible. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to item 2.2, receipt, review, and possible approval of the tentative budget for FY 23-24 school year.
Awesome. So while Julie makes her way up, I'll just give the quick intro. Every year around this time, it's usually that first meeting in April, we present our tentative budget. And then there's a period of time between now and the end of May when we receive feedback on that, get, you know, from you, from the community, from district leadership, from different entities, and then working towards a final budget that gets submitted at the end of May. So that's the context. Julie's got a great presentation, and I'm going to turn the time over to her.
Okay, thank you. So the full PDF is available on Board Docs. It's about 140 pages. So I'm just going to go through a PowerPoint to kind of summarize the main pages. So this is just an overview of our budget process. So we're at the very beginning, the tentative budget. The whole purpose of this is to lay out, you know, an initial draft. Now we've got about 6 weeks to go over it, get input before our final is due at the end of May. We will be advertising a budget forum on May 1st. So there'll be more information coming on that. Fiscal start is July 1, and then after our audit, we'll have a budget augmentation in December to update our beginning fund balances in this budget, and then we'll have a final adjustment in June. So long process. Okay, so this is a 5-year historical, well, I guess it's more than 5 year now. I should change that. Of the general fund. So since 2022, expenditures have been higher than revenues. Revenues have increased from 2018 at 16%, and expenditures have increased in that same time 29%. So that's the impact on fund balance. When expenditures are continually higher than revenues, fund balance goes down. So as of right now, guidance from the state is an ending fund balance of 1.3 million. We're hoping for an adjustment. We won't know until June, and I'm guessing it'll be about 4.8 million in sped revenue that goes to the general fund. So that would bring our ending fund balance up to the 6.1 million. And we'll have to adjust for that if we get it in the December augment, because our final will be due before then. And I'll hit on expenses in another slide. Part of that's been the change in fund balance, additional positions, inflation. We had inflation in the last 2 years between 7 to 9%. Diesel costs up about 40% with an all-time high in March 22. So that all hits our expenditures. We had a Chromebook purchase in 23. So we'll see that in the general fund, and in 24, the expenditures will be picked up by a grant. So we have revenue from the state for the next 2 years. Hopefully the 24 amount increases by about 4.8 million. Hopefully we see that increase in both years, but this is as of current amounts from the state. Expenditures. So I guess if we just look at the next 2 years, we had an increase in revenues 8% and 5%, while expenditures, we're looking at an increase of 9% to 6%. Effective July 1, the pension rates set by the state increased from 29.75% of wages to 33.5% of wages. So that increases our pension expense line item by over 12%. And we estimate that increase to cost about 2 million additional going forward.
Annually, correct?
Annually, yep. 76% of fiscal year 24 general fund expenditures consist of wages, salaries, and benefits totaling 134 million. Yearly increases year upon year would be cost of living increases, merit increases, and inflation, which we see in utilities, supplies, fuel, and service expenses. I've already hit on the PERS. The health insurance district paid premiums is expected to be about $14 million in that fiscal year 24. And then I have a comparison on FTEs. February 22, we had 1,084 full-time equivalent on regular payroll. In February 2023, we had 1,107, which is an increase of 23 FTE. Part of that shift is between full-time subs and filling positions. Okay, so this page goes over, it summarizes FTEs and enrollment. So the assessed valuation I get from the state. FTEs, we kind of already went over. The funded enrollment, I adjusted to match funded enrollment. So we show full enrollment as 10,175. We're not funded for pre-K, and then they do a formula with the weighted. So I adjusted to match what the state says is funded enrollment. And I budgeted the 60 increase in FTE is about the number of long-term subs filling vacant positions. So that's assuming they're filled.
Julie, can you pause just long enough? Are there any questions from the board up to this point? Okay,
No?
go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this next slide summarizes the information from the state. So this matches the numbers the pupil-centered funding plan says we're getting for the next 2 years. There's a little increase for next year. So this is just year one. This is the number here that we're hoping we get about 4.8 million. Transportation is funded on a 4-year average. So I think it was in FY28, we expect to be fully funded for our transportation. So this number you'll see on the next slide.
And Julie, what's the number for fully funded transportation? Is that the 4.6 million or is it a higher number?
So fully funded transportation would be about $1 million more than what we're getting now. Our 4-year average doesn't have any bus purchases in it. So we're not funded for buses at least these next 2 years. And then we'll be funded for a couple buses the 2 years after that. And then hopefully the biennium after that, we get full funded for transportation. This is page 3 of the larger PDF, and it summarizes all the revenue for the state, the fund balance, the general fund. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess if you have any questions, I can go into more detail on that. No, okay. Expenditures. So this summarizes expenditures district-wide broken out by wages, salaries, benefits, services and supplies, as well as transfers between funds. So within the general fund, wages and benefits total 76% of expenditures, regular programs, which is instructions and teachers, 46.6%, operations and maintenance, 14%, school administration, 7.45%, student support, about 5%, transportation with the purchase of 5 buses, and just maintenance, 6.36%. And central services total 3.5% of total general fund expenditures. Other than the health insurance fund, the largest fund is special education with nearly 13.5 million in expenditures in 24. The federal grants and the E-rate fund, their expenditures will heavily reflect funding. So those will change each budget cycle.
Julie, as far as the special education fund, do we have any word from the state yet about why they gave us a 0?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not the only district that did it this way. So there are a few other districts waiting for a correction as well. I thought it made sense to put SPED revenue in SPED and food service revenue in food service. But they want it in the general fund and then transferred out into SPED and food service. So since they didn't see the transfer out, it looked like we didn't need it. So we adjusted our numbers along with the few other districts that did the same thing, and they're supposed to recalculate our revenues. So we'll know in June what that number is. So I've corrected it for this year, and you'll see a transfer out for those amounts.
And Julie, to clarify, that's above and beyond what the other amount you'd already mentioned, or is that the other amount that you mentioned? The
SPED,
No, I apologize. You said that there may be additional funding coming in that we would have to augment. Is that all of
That's-
what you were referring to with the conversation between you and Teresa just now?
yeah,
Okay.
that's the 4.8 million.
Thank you.
Any questions on this slide?
Please elaborate as to what the green columns and rows signify.
Also, all the colors are put in there by the state in the state template. So they're just trying to highlight the transfers, contingency, and fund balance. They wanted it there. So this is the detailed breakout page for the general fund revenues. We have the tuition from other districts. We have the pupil-centered funding plan. This is the item in yellow is where we hope to get the $4.8 million adjustment. And this federal funds is impact aid. This shows our projected beginning fund balance. So for FY23, we had budgeted an ending fund balance of about 4% of expenditures, and I think it's going to end up around 7% of expenditures. And it'll end at about 1%. So we will need to file a corrective action plan with the state for our ending fund balance. Whenever you have a decline of 3 consecutive years or a budgeted fund balance less than 4%. So we'll have to go through that with file that reporting to the state.
Is there any action involved with filing that reporting? I mean, obviously then the
So-
filing, do we have to take corrective action to?
Yes, yes, the corrective action plan should be your intended corrective actions.
And when is that due?
I'm not even sure there's a due date. I think we just communicate that it's coming and let them know. I don't think we've had to file that, and I don't even know if ever, so I'll have to look it up.
Okay, thank you.
Can they turn that down? Like what if they don't like our corrective action plan?
They can provide input, but it kind of is what it is. They'll definitely work with the district to ensure the actions taking place. Yeah, I'm not sure what they do if they don't like it. I'm sure they'll communicate it if they want to.
And we can communicate back. Maybe if you'd fully fund education, we'd all be good, maybe.
Well,
right.
There are corrective actions, that we'll need to take for the next few years, but we also have like transportation. Once, that's another $1 million. It's a few years away. We need to make it till then, but then in FY28, that'll get fully funded. And I think some pieces will fall into place a little better. We are losing hold harmless next year, so that's expected to help as well. Pay as you go. So I included this. It's a big fund. I wanted to point out that the capital improvement plan isn't due till August 1st. So this really is just a tentative guess. The budget does need to match the capital improvement plan, so we'll have to start working on that for the final column. And then I guess we can adjust again in December if we need to, because the May version will be due before the capital improvement plan is due. So Just wanted to, everyone knows, but I wanted to point out that that revenue stream ended in July 1, 2022. We budgeted over $1 million in allowable equipment purchases related to the school violence prevention project. And then in the slides are on Word docs there's a link in there that you can see my notes on the version that's on Board Docs. There's a link to follow that project on ClearGov. And I just wanted to plug the May 1st budget forum. So questions can be sent to me ahead of time, and then we can work on getting the answer into our presentation. Anyone's invited. There'll be a budget presentation. There'll be opportunities to provide input and ask questions. And then the budget will be due at the end of the month. Now that was high level and kind of fast. So are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
I asked a lot of mine when I talked with Julie about things. One thing that stands out to me is first the PERS increase and just how much we pay in benefits. And I'm only pointing that out because I think sometimes that gets neglected. People think, oh, my salary, but when you add in all those other perks, if you will, that is really something. And when you just see that visually, I'm like, wow, it's kind of scary. I hope more people will enter PERS or whatever they're going to do with that, so that maybe that can go back down. I don't know if that's possible for it to go down, because it seems like whenever something goes up, it never comes back down. But that is a big percentage.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a question. Sorry. More comments.
All right, any other questions from the board?
Julie, how much can the budget change between now and final? Because I'll be
Yes.
honest with you, the 5 days that we were given to review this is not nearly enough time for me to be able to answer the
Yeah.
questions that I have.
The budget, the whole purpose of the tentative budget is to get it to you and the public. So it's not intended for you to say, yes, this is our budget for the next year. That's why this is made public today. It can change however we want it to change, as long as you have the fund balance to support it.
Now that this is off your plate, you have nothing scheduled the next 6 weeks, right?
I have
You're
two
all
budgets
ours.
due by the end of June, and a year to close, and yeah, but it's all good.
I will try to be as respectful of your time as possible, but anticipate that, yes, you may be seeing me more than regular.
No problem.
Before we go any further, the really steep decline in ending fund balance is exceptionally concerning to me. And I'm hopeful that, yes, the budget with SPED comes in, but if it doesn't, we can't even last until we get fully funded for transportation, let alone anything else. So that's exceptionally concerning, as I've already said. You did discuss a little bit of what has caused that. The mandated amount of PERS obviously hurts, but the expenditures are not related to the change in pupil-centered funding program, correct? So it's not because we went from a Nevada plan to the other as to why the ending fund balance is dropping this way necessarily, correct?
Well, I think that's part of it. If we're hold harmless for 2 years, that means our minimum was FY20 funding. Our expenses
Won't
were
stay at
not held
FY20.
at FY20 levels. There was inflation, there were COLAs, there were merit increases. So expenses increased more than revenues did.
Okay,
I think
don't
another
wanna-
way of putting it is we're not keeping pace with inflation. Basically, diesel fuel went up. more than I see it just on the private side too. I hope that I'll talk a little bit about it later, but the legislature's seeing this and we can get some positive numbers coming back to us soon.
Yeah, and legislation's still in session and we don't know what's all coming our way, so. All we can do is budget our best guess and maybe look at what expenses, what we can do for the next few years until like transportation funding can kick in.
All right, any other questions from the board?
Yeah, please.
I think it's good to notice on that graph too, when we're talking about inflation, right, is about 8% and it will go up. But if you're looking year by year, those ratios there are exceeding 8%. So just think of that.
Thank you, because that's just to prepare you. That's part of the questions I'm going to be asking is what was mandated? What is the inflationary? We know there's 8%. It seems to me that this is not just inflationary. Well, obviously that's a big portion of it. Yeah, I'm going to have some time with you.
And I'll also point out that I think all of management needs to be in those discussions because I don't have the power to make this kind of change by myself. It's got to be more than on paper. It needs buy-in from everybody.
Thank you, Julie. How would the board like to proceed?
Move to approve the tentative budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the tentative budget for FY 23-24 school year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the motion carries.
Julie, before you go any further and before we move off of this, if there's not significant changes before, because the final budget will come back to us in May, if there's not significant changes and we don't approve the budget, what does that mean? What does that do?
If there's no budget approved by end of May, that's a statute violation.
And what's the penalty for violating statute?
A finding that you do a corrective action plan on to the state and the
Okay.
governor's office now. And the budget is a planning tool. So I think that goes back to discussions and action plans with management and departments and schools. You can put what you want on paper, but it's more than that. Like, this is a start. This is a plan. I guess it also needs action. Sorry, it made more sense in my head.
I don't trust that we're going to get what the state says, oh, you didn't do this the way we wanted you to do it, so now we'll get that right later. I am really nervous at $1 million funding balance, ending funding balance in a budget of $250 some odd million. That's a sneeze. That's less than a week. I mean, that's 2 days of operations or something crazy.
And I think we do the budget as a plan, but it's going to take it might take longer action.
I guess I hear the plan. I'm just saying, I don't want for us as a board to plan on, yeah, we're good with this.
Well, we have to remember, so the first step is to look at 76% of our budget is wages and benefits. We can start at what we can cut back on that, what positions don't need filled. Overtime, approval before overtime can be paid out. Maybe restricting comp time. The thing to look at after that is the last 25% of the budget. That's, also not on me. to decide, it's up to everybody to decide what we can pull and what we can't. Out of the last 25%
Okay, thank
of
you.
expenditures.
Right, again, thank you, Julie. And yeah, I'm sure the board will have a lot of questions between now and May, so thank you for that. All right, we'll move on to item 2.3, appointment of school board members to attend 2023 high school graduation ceremonies in the district. All right, so there is a list on there of the graduations, their dates and times, excuse me. So we'll go ahead and everybody can look over that for just a second. I will just let you know, I am planning on attending Spring Creek High Schools because I have a daughter graduating and Rachel's graduating. So I got to be there for that too. So you can put, I'm going to put myself down for Spring Creek High School because that's what I need to be there for. But otherwise, we can start at the top of the list with West Wendover High School. And we can just take volunteers for attendance at those. All right.
I got dibs on the Wendover.
Okay. So we got Jeff going to West Wendover.
The 8th looks like a crowded day.
It's
Yes.
very crowded.
Yep.
I'll actually be out of town the 9th and 10th. And I cannot attend the 14th and 16th. No, the 16th. So I can do Wells the 8th and the Battleborn
Okay. Well,
Battleborn on the 16th. Yes. Yep, I
okay,
can do
pause.
that.
So you,
I can do Wells and Battleborn.
okay, Wells. So Josh,
I can do Carlin that 8th.
Carlin, Jana. Okay, how about we kind of skipped over Jackpot. Do we have a volunteer that can go to Jackpot on the 8th? We can come back to Jackpot in a second. All right, so we have NNVA left to fill Elko High School, Owyhee, Adult Ed, and Josh, you've got Battleborn, right?
Yes.
Okay, yep, I will. I'm just writing them down, so I've got them.
I'd love to do Elko High School, but I'm good with either one.
Right. Well,
On the other one, that's Nevada.
well, and some of these with different dates, we can attend different, a couple if we need to, because we obviously have more to attend there than we have board members. So, like I say, we still need someone for Jackpot.
I'd like to go to Owyhee on the 10th.
All right.
Before we move on, sorry,
go
before we
ahead,
move on
please.
beyond Owyhee, I do want to point something out. According to policy, graduation needs to be held on the same day as the last day of school. We're asking for Owyhee's to be approved for Saturday, the 10th, and that is because they are tentatively, because of conversations with Senator Cortez Masto, she has demonstrated interest in being present at their graduation, but her only available date would be Saturday, the 10th. So this would be a request for the Board of Trustees to also, so in addition to you making assignments, we need approval for, that's part of the approval for this document is for Owyhee to be able to stray from the normal policy of their graduation date.
Okay. I am glad you answered that because that was one of my questions and now I understand why they're making that request. So we'll make sure we put that on our list. Okay. So.
The day and time for me just worked well with my schedule. They can get me back
Okay.
to work at a reasonable time. And I think that'd be a fun trip up there anyway, so.
All right, so my list says we still need Jackpot, NNVA, and EHS. And Brooke, you had said Elko High School, but you would be glad to do any of those.
Yeah.
Right? And Susan, do
I
you have
can
a
do
preference?
Jackpot again, that's fine.
Okay,
Did Susan say jackpot?
all right, Susan has Jackpot.
And I
Brooke,
can
you're
do
gonna-
one of the other ones as well, either the adult ed or the virtual, whichever. Doesn't matter to
All
me.
right, let me. Well, I know I can make it to the adult ed on the 14th, but I can't make the virtual one on the 9th. So,
I can do the virtual one then.
okay, so Susan will put you there. And adult ed, I can take that one. Right.
I apologize. I wasn't trying to, I was just kind of waiting to see where
Oh,
it
wait,
fell
Matt,
to
we
see
need
where I
you.
need to go.
Hold on, you've got to
So
hop in
I know that
there.
there's a few that have already done doubles. The 14th would not be a good day. So if we're good for Teresa, for you taking, is that right? Adult
Yeah, I've
ed?
got the adult ed.
Susan, I can probably take jackpot. I know that you went up there last time.
It's okay.
From a travel standpoint. But yeah, I was just waiting to see where I needed to go and I didn't speak up soon enough, obviously. So,
All right, well, let's do some adjustments because Matt, we got to put you somewhere. So
well, I'm Carlin Spring Creek and Battleborn Youth Academy were my preferences. And so I'm happy to double up, but I don't want folks that have already doubled up to have to double up if they need to, if they don't need to. You're good with Hawaii, Jeff? And obviously you're getting West Wendover. Okay. And then
Be a good opportunity to just get up there and visit too, you know, even if it's graduation, but make some time of it.
So then are you taking Carlin?
Joanna's got Carlin, right?
and I'm happy to join you in that. Again, if anybody wants to give one up, let me know now. 14th is the only one it's pretty much a hard no.
Yeah, I can't do any of the ones like the 14th through the 16th. I won't be here.
Oh, well, looks like we've got Jeff at 2 and Josh at 2. So
Josh, what was your second one? Wells and where?
Battleborn.
Wells and
Okay.
Battleborn.
That's right.
Okay. We can double up there too. It's not a big deal.
All right, what,
I'd love to do HS, but I cannot make it.
so Matt, where are we putting you on the list?
Then I'm happy to do Carlin, Spring Creek, and Battleborn. If nobody wants to give up any of the others, and I'll double up on, I guess, all of you. Adriana, I'll double up with you and Carlin, and Teresa with Spring Creek, and Josh at Battleborn.
All right, is everybody good with that? All right. Okay, I don't think we need an official motion to do this. We just need to make sure we have someone assigned to every graduation. It looks like we've got that filled.
We may need
And we
it.
need to
Oh, go ahead.
we need to approve an exception to policy for Owyhee to be able to do their graduation on a day other than the last day of school, which would move that to June 10th. So
Where is that on the agenda?
So that is part of the approval of board members going. Well, it has to be done,
Oh,
correct, in
okay.
order to.
I
That is
just didn't see it written that way, so it's just.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we allow Hawaii to hold their graduation on June 10th at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any other discussion?
If I may, I recognize that the date is posted and the date and time is posted on there, but I would agree with Susan that I don't know that this is agendized properly. I want them to be able to plan accordingly, but I think this is going to have to come back before the board as a properly agendized item. So I think if we vote on this, we're voting more in spirit to let them know, move forward. But legally, I think we're going to need to come back and review this just so it's agendized properly.
And that is totally acceptable, but I would say we definitely want Owyhee to be able to plan. So we can, if something is not agendized appropriately, the only action we need to take is to bring it back. But we certainly don't want Owyhee to be waiting and hoping that they can have their graduation when they've already made plans. So my recommendation to the board is we go ahead and vote on this and we put it as an official agenda item on our next board meeting.
In the event that the senator is not able to attend, we're still leaving this as the 10th, correct? Because once they get things printed and everything else, kind of hard to start changing things.
If that is their request, I think it's a good
Yeah,
way to go.
I've kind of already told them, if that's what they want, then should the senator, whether we find out tomorrow the senator can't come or we find out a week before, we're just going to keep it on that date. So
Great.
That's the plan.
Thank you.
And after our visit in Carson City, Cody and I there might be more than just one senator that wants to attend that graduation. So we have a motion. Did we get and we had a second? Any other discussion? We know we will bring this back as an official agenda item at the next meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor of a tentative approval, I guess is how we will put it, of allowing Owyhee, excuse me, to move their graduation to June 10th instead of the traditional policy last day of school, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that motion carries, but we'll see it officially on our next agenda. Any other questions on that item? All right, we'll move on to item 2.4, receipt of quarterly update reports. This is a non-action item. Candace.
Good evening. I'm happy to kick off our quarterly report for our curriculum department. And all right. Not only am I going to be talking about kindergarten and new student registration and the counseling program pilot that we're currently doing, I also have a few other items I'd like to talk about tonight. On April 17th, the online portal for new student and kindergarten registration is going to open. And then we are going to have 2 in-house events here at central office for families to come register if they need help with the online portal. And those 2 events are going to be next Thursday and Friday from 10 to 2 here in this boardroom. And I don't know if you remember last year, but we had the student registration date at the kindergartners had to be 5 by the first day of school, but then they had that affidavit that they could have signed saying that they were in an early childhood program. And then it kicked their start date back to September 30th. We don't have that anymore. So now kindergarten registration start date is either on or before the first day of school, which is going to be August 28th this upcoming year.
Candace, just to clarify that will be the first day of school is when they have to be 5, not the start of the kindergarten registration, correct?
Right.
Okay, just making sure that was clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are currently piloting counseling programs at the elementary school. And I have 7 counselors that are throughout the district completing these pilots. There's 3 programs that they are piloting, and they're Quaver Ready, Second Step, and Character Strong. And the counselors are spending about 4 to 5 weeks in each program with the students. So what you have in front of you is a binder. And these binders are going to be given to principals tomorrow after admin council to take to their front offices so parents can come look through the binder and preview the materials. And each binder, you'll see that it consists of a program narrative, a scope and sequence, sample lessons, and then a feedback section where parents have the opportunity to provide feedback using either a QR code or what I like best, paper and pencil. Does anybody have any questions about that? Oh, the timeline for this. So we're going to be piloting these programs until the end of school. And then in June, I'll call the counselors back here. We'll look at all our feedback, take that into consideration, and pick a program for all the elementary schools to use next year.
And so, Mr. Attorney, here, the purpose of this is so that all of the elementary schools counselors are using the same playbook?
Yes. Yeah. It's been a number of years since they've been given any type of curriculum, and they reached out this year asking for help. They tried to do this last year, but it just kind of fell through. So this year we're doing a little bit of a coordinated effort to where all the counselors that are in the pilot are doing all 3 programs. And then we created a rubric to take each program through. And after they complete the program, then they also complete the rubric, and we'll bring the rubrics and the parent feedback back and make our decision.
So this is the first one that you're looking at, and then we'll get to see the next two.
It's in there too.
Oh, it's all in one.
Mhm.
Okay. And then we have to give these back tonight.
Yeah.
So we
Susan, you can have mine.
no, that's okay.
Okay.
Can go to a school and look.
Yeah. And
It won't be on display in the boardroom like they do with the other stuff.
I'll have one here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what I'll do with the counselors is I'll give them the digital form of this. So if anybody wants it printed off, they'll have access to it. But honestly, everything that's in there, I just searched it up on the internet and it was there. So if they just had the program names, they could go however deep they wanted to go.
If I could interject real quick too, this fits nicely in with, just right off the top of my head, probably 3 different elements of our new strategic plan, as far as consistency, as far as supporting student social and emotional learning needs, and as far as having a network for schools to share best practices and being aligned together. So I'm going to try to get myself in the habit of pointing out when the things we're talking about and doing are aligned with our strategic plan. And so this is me getting into that habit.
So I apologize for my ignorance. I'm looking here on Quaver Ready, page 4, scope and sequence, second grade. It has 5 lessons, lessons 1, 6, 11, 16, and 21. Are these lessons for the students or are these lessons for the counselors?
Counselors to do with students.
So they come into and do these with a whole class, or do they pull certain students out?
Yeah, they do these with the whole class.
Okay, thank you. Because I was really starting to not understand quite what we're doing. So the counselors then will be going into each class
Yes.
and presenting these lessons.
Yes.
So this is not, I have a problem, I need to talk to a counselor. Oh, let me see what lesson this falls into.
Well, they do that too, but not like
Okay.
that.
Okay, because my next question was, so what does it take to be a counselor? Do we just say, here's your manual, good luck? Now I'm getting it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
at the elementary level, they do more of a direct teach.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And is it fair to say most of the elementary schools have counselors, one of their special times? Is it like PE or art? I mean, I know some schools do, maybe some don't.
I do know they have at least 2 scheduled counseling times at each school.
Okay.
Each class does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A month, sorry.
Oh, okay.
A month. And some schools do have that luxury to where they have that in their schedule that they can schedule their counselor more. Some don't.
Thank you. And just one other question I have about this. I know this one's the elementary version. Are any of these that are being piloted, do they also have a version that can be extended for the upper level grades?
They do. However, when Paul gets up here to give his quarterly report, he's going to be talking about Hope Squad. So these curriculums right here are going to be K-5, and then Hope Squad covers 5-12.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
These sessions, are they put in like special classes, like the art and everything? Is it put into the schedule that way? Or do we take away from like they're twice a month? So then they have 2 less times they're doing art and PE? Or how are they put into the schedule?
No, those schools that have that kind of schedule just build it in. So they'll go to their 4 specials plus counselor. And actually all schools are like that. So but some have it more on a regular basis. So some schools, they get to see the counselor 4 times a month. Some schools don't have that luxury and the kids get just twice. It just depends on the size of the school.
So no, this is in, for preliminary. Are we, when you lose that word in your head and you're like, what am I?
All the time, Dr. Byers, all the time.
Blocking, right? Blocking.
The
We
pressure.
learned something, yeah, blocking and the pressure, right? What's the Okay, I'm just gonna say this. What's the accountability for it? Like as far as you hand it out to the sites, and then as far as making sure we're working on it and those types of things. Is there a tracking or is there something? Is it just reporting back to you? Are we to that point yet? Or are you still to the point where we're just trying it out right now?
We have monthly counselor meetings, monthly counselor meetings, but we kind of bebop between elementary going and then secondary going. And then that's 1 month. The next month we all meet together. But I'm very fortunate to work with the elementary counselors that I have because we have a really good communication base and a really good group. So I'll help them through this the best I can.
So do they have goals or something to focus on? As the
They have
counselors, do they
counseling
what we're gonna work on?
standards. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're more counselor standards. And
so that should be their focus, right? To answer part of Josh's question.
Yeah.
Have standards to follow.
And two, this is new. They've never had this. So what we'll do this summer is get them together and we'll plan it all out. So we know where, and kind of timeline things. So we know what's being taught, when and where, and just make our adjustments accordingly.
And I assume, like for other people's knowledge, I'm assuming it still happens. Like if, for me as a classroom teacher, if I went to the counselor and said, my class is really having a hard time with whatever the problem is, let's say bullying. So you can go to the counselor and kind of get some special attention to your own class so they can help you that way too. So
right. And I
that's why
think that's where that manual or Mr. McCarty was referring to in there helps them kind of narrow down where to find it and get those
sometimes that's why
resources.
it's not scheduled so much is so that they can accommodate things that come up, because sometimes you have a whole class that needs work on a particular topic. So I'm assuming they still do that.
And one of the components on our rubric too was a parent component to it, because we thought that was important, and a school-wide component too. So we're speaking that language throughout the school. And so like the classroom teachers are using the same vocabulary as the counselor. And then the parents will get an info sheet home saying, hey, this is what we're working on, or I just want to give you a heads up. Next week in counseling, this is what we're talking about, just so we can all have the same vocabulary.
I like that.
And what's the measurement? What are we looking for at the end? Wait, let's say we pick one of these.
Mm-hmm.
How will we know it's working?
I'm guessing it's feedback from teachers, counselors,
In a
parents.
drop of behavioral issues, in a rise of,
Hopefully.
okay, right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
I'm not done yet.
Okay, well, thank you for that part then. Carry on.
The next thing I'd like to talk about is we are doing our substitute class called Strategies for Substitute Success. I talked about it last time I was up here for my quarterly report, but since then we've had 35 subs take the class, and our next class is going to be scheduled April 29th, I believe. But I just wanted to read a couple of the comments that I've gotten back. One said, I have loved this class, very informational, lots of great ideas shared to succeed in a workday. I wish I would have had this class before taking any sub jobs. Another person said, I wish this class was offered 10 years ago when I first started subbing. I learned so much wonderful information today. I love this class. And the last comment I'd like to share with you guys is this person said, thank you for supporting us as substitutes. You answered all our questions. Thank you for making this training worth my time. And like I said, our next subclass is April 29th. And I have two phenomenal retired teachers teaching it. It's Amy Thiessen and Alyssa Smiley. And when we first talked about this, I believe it was like back in November, October, we hadn't done one yet. And we had this plan that the class was going to be 12 hours. But since then, we've kind of revised it a little bit and cut some things out that weren't so beneficial, we thought. And we took it from a 12-hour class that was a Friday night and a Saturday to just a Saturday class. Our next steps for this, we're playing around, making it virtual too. But I just can't wrap my brain around that yet.
How do substitute teachers, if they want to participate in that class, how do they?
So we have our HR department. They formulate a sub list of everybody that comes in and puts in an application. And then I get that list from Stacy, and then I send emails out with a Google flyer or Google Doc that we made into a flyer where they can sign up.
And does it cost them anything?
No, and actually they get $200 for attending.
How large is the class, or how many subs can they put into the class?
We do it in this boardroom. So we could put, a good 40 people in here, but the most we've had so far is 16 in a class.
Okay. From a policy standpoint, if the board so chose, since they are not covered under a collective bargaining agreement, we could say as part of the requirement to teach.
Oh,
we
I'm glad
could
you said that, because
require
we
this.
do have that. That is part of our qualifications, I guess, for subbing in the district, is you have to take this class within the first 3 months of turning in your application.
Thank you.
Now, with this being our initial year doing this, we're kind of being loose on our deadline and stuff and our dates, but we'll be offering it more during the summer, and we'll be a little bit harder on our start date next year. All right, so I just wanted to let you guys know about the next steps I'm going to be taking this next quarter. Paul and I are working on completing the math textbook adoption, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to steal his thunder. I'm also going to start the process with teachers and nurses on updating the maturation curriculum for the elementary students. The nurses have reached out to me saying that a lot of the videos were VHS, and we no longer have VHS, so they're having to YouTube, and you can't always trust a YouTube video. So we are going to go and revitalize and update our materials for that. I'm also looking at planning summer school for our kiddos at all the elementary schools in Elko County, and that'll be July 1st through, I believe, August 17th. And then we started the process yesterday of reevaluating our RISE, which is our program that our new hires go to, and just looking at that and updating those things. Any questions?
Mr. Attorney, just to back up a little bit on the kindergarten registration, it's not offered at other communities other than Elko, correct? They need to come here if they need the physical help for registration?
No. So we have 2 on-site dates for us here at Central, but they can always go to their school site because they should have a kiosk at each school where parents have access to a computer and internet, because our application for registration is online. But it gets kind of confusing. So that's why if they need help, they can go to school, or they could always come here to Central. But on those 2 days, we have the nurses here. We do little games for the kids that come in. It's kind of a fun event.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right,
Right,
thank
any other
you.
questions? All right, thank you.
I'm so sorry. How can I get a copy of this? Because I read about 5 pages of it. So.
Right. I have all those files saved electronically on my computer.
Okay,
So I'll just send them to you.
that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Digital copy of it all.
Sure.
For sure.
I say just send it to the whole board.
Yeah, that's
Then
what
we
we'll
all have
do.
Can you just put it in Google Drive in a shared document?
However you want to do it, I'm happy for it.
Yeah, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay, we'll figure out a way. You guys will get it. All right, thank you.
Right, thank you. That's how we should start all updates. The high
We
five.
should.
I like it.
She doesn't like to speak in front of people for some reason, but she does all right when she does it. So we had our Hope Squad training today. Tam Lannard was our trainer's name, and it was good. It wasn't fun because anytime you're dealing with that topic and just with the recent history, but the training was outstanding. He several times commented on how engaged our staff was and interested and participating. So that was awesome. And then he commented more than several times about how impressive it was that we had central office administrators at the training, and especially the superintendent. So that'll be a class that'll be part of every school's curriculum, every high school, and then some of the combined, just because they don't have the space to add it for the middle school, they'll still include those kids, but they won't be able to offer the class. But they will be doing things to get them geared up and get ready to attend. It deals with, mainly it's with suicide, but it covers a lot of mental health things, which having teenagers at home, our kids are struggling like they never have before. So I think it's going to be an excellent thing. The next steps are the trainers were trained, so they're going to go back and accept nominations for kids to get into the program. Once the kids are nominated, there's a vetting process that the administration and the advisor will go through to pick their final group of kids. The one thing that I thought was really cool is he mentioned over and over again how important it is to get kids from a wide perspective. A lot of the time these things attract the Stuco kids because those are the gung-ho go get them kids, but we don't just want to focus on those kids that may need help. So I think that's a great part of this program. They've had pretty good success. Schools that had, or districts that had issues with this, that they've seen it decline. So that's our hope. It was a real encouraging training for the district. I think it's going to be a good thing for us going forward. With that, I've been working on some other stuff for like mental health and then also safety stuff with the police department, and then getting ready to do our EOPs for next year. The EOP documents that we've had, that was my first board meeting, was introducing the EOP that we kind of rushed through because it was in the transition. It's good, but it's not specifically tailored to our needs. So that's one of the things that I'll be working on between now and when we get that document signed again this summer, is making sure that it does fit what we need. We'll put together our team of people and we'll go through that. Along with that, I've been working with the police, our SROs and the two big police departments, the county and the city. We've scheduled monthly meetings between myself, lieutenant from the sheriff's office, one of the officers from the PD, and also our SRO Sergeant Anna Bribieska, to try to get things to a little bit better place. Some great suggestions have come out of that. We're working now on getting lock boxes at school sites that we can store keys in. So if there's something that happens at the school when the SROs aren't available, the police would be able to get into the buildings and do their thing. So that's something that will probably be happening. They also requested, one of our SROs requested that we order wipes that can detect marijuana, because one of the difficulties they have with kids with vapes is we don't know what's in it. And so these wipes, I don't know a whole lot about them, but it sounds like they just wipe on whatever surface, like the vape, and it'll tell them this is tobacco, this is THC. That's not necessarily, we're not going to use that necessarily as a gotcha thing for kids, but it's also, hey, you've got a problem. I know the SROs do that a lot now. We have kids who do UAs periodically, and we're not busting them. We're saying, okay, this is a reason for you to get clean. So we're looking at a lot of things like that to go with school safety, because it's a big concern. Also working on cleaning up our bullying procedures. The last few years have been pretty tough, and a lot of things that we should have had our eyes on, we didn't really have our eyes on as much. So our bullying procedures were inconsistent from school to school. We didn't have forms that every school was using. We didn't have processes that every school is using. So tomorrow after admin council, we're getting a presentation from the state on what it is we're supposed to be doing. I've updated our forms. I stole from Clark County because they got about 700 lawyers that do these things, which is a lot better than one of me. So we stole forms from them and we're in the process of editing them. Kate, let's help me out with that. We do have the first version we're going to present tomorrow at admin council to the administrators, and then we'll edit it as it needs to be done to fit our needs. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing this summer, is a lot of those other things that we're just not consistent on from school site to school site, getting more consistent with all of these things that we do, because those, as we battled through COVID, a lot of that got kind of left behind. Math textbook, we are finishing up our final pilot this week, and then next week we're meeting 18th. Candace is going to meet with the elementary teachers who piloted the textbooks. I'm going to meet with the secondary teachers, and then we're going to go through the process of filling out the rubric and coming to a consensus of which textbook we'll be adopting for next year, and we'll get that order placed. And then we're also working through our list of adoptions that we're going to go forward with, kind of the timeline for each of the different subject areas. We got the one, well, we will do one going every year going forward, but we need to meet with Mr. Anderson and discuss what direction we want to go next year. So that'll be something that we're doing a lot more consistently than we have in the past, because that's something else that just was completely neglected. We've got our history textbooks, I know, don't cover, I think the US history book covers the election of President Obama, and then that's as far as it goes. So a lot has happened in that time. History moves pretty quick. So we need to come up with that. Our science books are about the same age. So we just need to get back on track with textbook adoption. I didn't give you any fancy handout like Candace, so sorry about that.
Mr. Allen, if I may, textbooks. The reality is printed materials are not nearly as prevalent as digital materials. Is there a industry-wide move to that digital process? And what do we do for those kids that don't have the digital process?
So there's not that I'm aware of, there's no movement to get rid of textbooks completely, but every textbook we adopt is going to have a digital component.
And is that less expensive, or are they still charging the same amount for printed versus digital?
So we can't just choose to adopt digital. The paper books are part of the deal. And so the digital is kind of a, hey, you get this too.
So does that mean that we need to purchase a textbook for every student? Do we do it for every class? What do we do with the extra textbooks that we just don't need? Are there extras?
No, typically, so our order, so let's say for the math textbooks, we're going to order for this year, right? We're going to order, what we did to start is we contacted each of the school sites, hey, give us your projected numbers for next year. And then we're going to base the order on that. Every year, half dozen times throughout the year, I get textbook requests from our site administrators, hey, we need more algebra books. And they have to list a reason. And the vast majority of the reason is enrollment's gone up. So we don't order plan. And especially now that we have 15-year-old books, we didn't order enough. So we do end up adding to those orders every single year.
Okay, thank you.
So is it one per kid, or do you just order like one for a class? Because I feel like my kids never come home with textbooks.
We order a textbook for every kid. It's up to the teachers on whether or not they think it's necessary to send them home. I know, like the math textbooks when I was at Spring Creek High School, I was driving, first it was to Buell, and then it was to Salt Lake, and then it was to Boise every year to get those textbooks rebound because they were so old. And then it kind of got to a point where some of the teachers were just, hey, we've got a classroom set, you can check them out, because there weren't the books to do it. in theory, each kid should have a textbook for every class. We're just so far behind right now that that's not a reality.
Would that be one way to cut expenses, is to have like a teacher has a classroom set or a little bit more than that, and then they just use those for their 7 classes or whatever? Or
I guess it would
since
cut
it's electronic, since they do have, access to digital, or that you have some extra, so if
Sure.
so needs to take one home.
We could, in theory, that would be a way to save us some money. I don't know. I'm a reader and I never read online. It just kills my eyes and I hate it. I hate not holding the book. And I think there's probably a lot of kids, Rachel's shaking her head.
I wish my kid was able to bring home a textbook,
Yeah.
and his teachers don't allow him to, most of them, so.
How's your kid?
I'd love to hear
What grade?
input from Rachel on this.
It might be a lot for those middle school kids, that they're middle school kids. And so you give them something and we never see it again. But that's something, yeah, I agree. Kids should have the textbook. If Zeke came home and asked for help on, well, now it's calc, so he's out of luck. But when he was in algebra or something I could do, if we didn't have a textbook, it would have been tough. So that's something we can encourage, is issue textbooks. And I can't imagine there wouldn't be a case if a kid went up and said, hey, I need to take a book home, even though they don't, that we wouldn't allow that to happen.
Well, if we're getting the digital, can't we just put it on the Chromebook itself though? Or is there limitations on that?
No, they're available on the Chromebook. The limitation would be the license. We get a license, as I understand it. We get a license for every paper copy, we get a digital license. And so that would just be the teacher giving them access to that. And if they asked, like I said, that's an easy thing for a teacher to do. And so many of our teachers, because of COVID, have lots of stuff available online. So I would imagine the vast majority of teachers are doing that.
But I'd love to hear Rachel's input on this. First, a digital copy versus a take-home copy. Every student having a copy. I'd love to hear the student thoughts on this.
Yeah, I am been in AP classes for most of my high school career, which I know isn't really a thing in middle school and other lower levels, but having the physical textbook has always been majorly beneficial to me. And I think it goes for a lot of other higher level students, and not even like the higher level students, but just all students in general. But I do think that it's important to have the physical copy to take home, but also just to have in the classroom.
Thanks, Rachel.
And the one other thing I will mention is we've asked for, as Julie was going through her budget, she asked us to get like a cost estimate on what we were going to be paying. The one company, they got back to us this week, and the cost estimate was a little bit lower than we expected. I think it was about $100,000 less than what we'd had budgeted. So we are saving. If that's the direction we decide to go, we're going to save a little bit of money there. And then they also told us that, that company told us we need to negotiate when we order books. So when we get to that point, we're actually going to do some ordering. We will push a little bit to get the best price we can to save us as much money as possible, because I think that's a big responsibility. The first time I signed a PO that was for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I wanted to throw up. A big part of our responsibility is trying to cut those costs when we can without cutting benefits to kids. And if haggling with the textbook company will get us that, that's something that definitely we will engage in.
I would appreciate that, because I recognize the power of paper. I also recognize the reality that there's a reason newspapers are shutting down. And hopefully we don't have to wait another 15 years for this, but in 15 years, I'd be surprised how many paper books we're going to actually still have. However we feel about it, I think it's a shame, but it is what it is. As we negotiate, I think it is important, and I think it is fiscally responsible to say we're not paying for 300 textbooks that are just going to sit in because like an English class, if you've got 7 classes coming through, that's 210 kids. If you've got, or 210 books, if you've got 30 in each class, that's a lot of paper that's just sitting there.
So we do have some books stored at the warehouse. The only one that I know that we have significant numbers of is the English textbooks. We just did the language arts adoption 5 or 6 years ago. And as part of that adoption, there was consumables like workbooks that we could send them with kids. We do have a bunch of those saved, and that was kind of by design by whoever was prior. I think it was Jack at that time, and I can't remember who the elementary person was, but they, instead of sending those back, we held on to them because our subscription runs out this year, and we still have a lot of those workbooks, those consumables can still be issued to those kids. So we did a good job of kind of stockpiling those. But on some others, I'll call up, like I called on a psych book to see if we had any, and we didn't have any at the warehouse. So we're not storing a whole bunch of stuff with outside of that, the language arts text, and that was by design.
Okay, that also kind of goes back to some of the professions of the folks on this board of carrying around 7 textbooks every day is also weighty. Okay, thank you.
Business for Dr. Byers. Those kids, I don't know what happened or why it happened, but they gave up on lockers, and you've got kids that have 75-pound backpacks walking
That's
around.
100% true. Between anterior head carried with electronics on devices, right? Between Chromebooks that are way lower than their eyesight and heavy books, I'm all for going for digital. I completely understand feeling a piece of paper. I went through grad school myself, so I understand. But it weighs a lot. It should only be 10% of your weight, just so we put that on record again. So 10% of whatever your weight is, kids, is what it's supposed to be. So,
and I can remember having this conversation prior to the English textbook adoption about whether or not we were going to get digital copies, because we were thinking we were going to move to 1-to-1, and the textbook industry is not real keen on that, because once we get to that point, they're going to lose some money because
we're a captive audience.
Yep.
I mean, we have to do it. So I understand where it's keen, but at some point, reality of us not having money is going to play into that.
Yep.
So a couple things to point out, advice or thoughts to chew on a little bit. He did mention that, so simply getting rid of the paper copies will not help us, because we get a digital copy for every paper copy we buy. So if we chintz on how many paper copies we buy, we also will not have enough digital copies to provide for our students. So that is a problem. And then that is a way that those companies do have us kind of captive in that way. I also want to point out, this is in no way a commentary on anyone and what they've done, but here we are 12, 18, I don't know how many years we are removed from the last social studies or science. Like we're talking about more than a dozen years. And it feels like this has been an area that it's been acceptable to just say, oh, well, we'll just save money by not getting kids updated resources. I'm going to go back to our strategic plan. One of the elements of our strategic plan was we would have updated and regularly updated curriculum and resources for our students so that they could be competitive both locally and globally. And I think in order for us to sustain and stick to that commitment, that having current at least processes where we review things, that's scheduled, say it's a 7-year cycle, which is I think ideally what we would do. You may not have to adopt every time, but I think it behooves us to review to make sure the material we're giving them is up to date, because we know how the technology changes, we know how advances happen. And if we want our kids to get a world-class education, we need to make sure they have the resources in order to be able to do that. So super sensitive as well to the topic of saving money. Paul mentioned, I can't remember his exact wording, but let's make sure it's not at the expense of the quality of education kids are going to get.
And just to reinforce what CJ said, in my 20 whatever years in the district, I can recall 3 textbook adoptions. One was the year before I got here. And I know just because I was teaching English at the time, we did the ELA adoption again. And I think I was there for a science adoption. So at the end of next year, we will have done as many textbook adoptions in the past 3. We did econ, then the math this year, and then whatever we decide is the biggest need for next year, we'll have done the same in 3 years that we did in the previous 20.
And I appreciate that. And I, as concerned as I am on the budget, by no means do I think we need to not continue to move forward. So that is very clear to put that out. But when you negotiate with the textbook manufacturers, I get, yep, they're going to say, well, you get one digital for every paper. We just simply say, thanks. We just need the digital because we don't need the paper.
The cost doesn't change.
And I get that. And if the cost doesn't change, then the cost doesn't change. We still then just don't have those sitting around. At some point, the world will wake up and tell the publishers, just like they did in the leisure market, this isn't working. And I'm not saying that we're going to save money by being the first ones out there doing that. We certainly aren't. The first person never saves the money. But when it comes to that, I think that we can be wise in continuing to move forward on the adoptions without taking unnecessary storage or anything else. And that's all I'm saying is we are getting to the point where the digital copy is going to be the only copy. There are many things that I can't even get paper on anymore, or they say, yep, here's the digital, go print it yourself if that's what you want. So we're still going to be paying, I think, one way or the other. I'm just saying, I think we need to start sending the message that no, that there are some that, yes, we need or want a limited amount of paper, but I don't think we need to have a paper, and this is, I get operational. And so I'm trying not to get too deep, but I think we can say we don't need 210 English books for every single high school or every single high school class. Because that then, it expands tremendously. But anyways, enough on that. I'll see if there's anything else on the textbooks before I jump backwards again.
So noted, we'll make sure when we're doing the negotiations. I also want to make sure I will, since two of you weren't here last year around this time when we did economics, and to remind you all when we did do the economics, Keith did a great job of, I want to say it was something having to do with the shipping. Keith saved us several tens of thousands of dollars on that. So we do have options, whether it's about how many copies we necessarily want, or if it has to do with shipping, or I don't know. There's different ways we can negotiate those things, and we'll be sure to be as fiscally responsible as we can when we do that.
Candace will be twisting arms.
Yes.
Go get them.
She'll hit them with this binder.
How much training are they going to get? Because that's included in the price.
Yeah, so we already did, at the start of each one of the adoptions, we had in-person training for a day on the textbooks and introducing them. We will have another one. Once we pick the book, we'll set something up. I think for the econ, that was towards the end. So like late May that we did. If we can get that done before we get out of school, we will. If not, it'll be something we do right off the bat. But they've already had some amount of training, and they've even set up like times that teachers could log in, and they did Zoom meetings or ask questions or things. So I think they've got pretty good support so far for the materials.
I just worry about going to a 4-day next year of how things like that are going to work with training people. So
we'll still get them the training they need.
Thank you.
Yep.
Michelle, and on the Hope Squad, you indicated it was a nomination process, but yet we still want to be as diverse as possible. And
right.
Student council are the ones that are gung ho, and leadership in the co-curricular classes, is that FBLA
yep.
and so forth. So is it only self-nomination, or can
other
admin,
people
teachers nominate, et cetera?
Yep. And I don't remember self-nomination even being an option.
Okay.
It was, you had to be nominated by either one of your peers or by one of your teachers. And he emphasized during the training that that's something that it's going to be up to the advisor and then administration. There's a list of like, you have to have X, Y, Z in order to even be nominated. And then the administration and with the teacher of the class will go through and make sure that we get a broad spectrum, because otherwise it's not doing what we wanted it to do. And the guy, Tam, did mention the group of people we had, there was nobody that was forced to volunteer to teach this class. It was all volunteer. And it's heavy stuff, and it's dealing with things that aren't very fun to deal with. The people we had in the room today, it was awesome. I'm excited to see the impact. And another aspect of this is there is a way that we can track like how many kids get referred to the program, and then how many kids we refer out to get help from health professionals. We will track that. And so hopefully next year at this time, or probably a little bit later, I can come to you and say, okay, Hope Squad, we had 52 kids referred out for additional mental help. And the big one is, I hope we can say at the end of the year next year, we didn't lose any kids, because that's the end goal of this. And that's something I don't want to have to go through again. There's been too many of those in my career. It seems like 20 a year. I know it hasn't been, but it seems like it has been, just because those are devastating to the whole school community. So we're going to do what we can to put a stop to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. There you go.
All right, so just a couple things on the list today for me, things that are kind of the major things going on in my world. First one is testing. It's testing season, right? So we're nearing the point of the year where we're doing our summative assessments for our students. Kind of formally kicked off in February with a regional training that was put on by DRC, which is the vendor that puts on the testing, provides the testing software, and NDE, and that was here in Elko. And then since then, so we take the information from that, use that to put site-specific trainings together that the principals and their test coordinators lead at each site to make sure that all the people who are administering the tests know, all the things from test security to certain protocols and procedures, and how to make sure that we have all the kids set up properly, and all that sort of stuff. So lots of different assessments that are going on. I'll just give you kind of a quick overview. We have ACT and pre-ACT at the high school level. That was actually done at the beginning of March 7th. 11th graders, our juniors, take the ACT. That's a part of the college and career readiness assessment requirement for graduation. And then we have all of our 9th and 10th graders take the pre-ACT to prepare themselves those 2 years for when they become juniors and take the actual ACT. And like I said, that happened at the beginning of March. So we should be getting results hopefully soon for those. So we'll start to see how kids did, and they'll have that information to submit to colleges as they start applying and things like that. Then we have Smarter Balanced Assessments. That's for 3rd through 8th graders, and that's math and language arts. We also have the science assessment that takes place for 5th, 8th, and 10th graders. And then there's also an alternate assessment, a version for special ed students who can't access the content of the general test. That testing window has actually also opened. It opened on March 20th. It runs all the way to May 18th. Each site gets to decide where in that window they will do their testing. We have some sites who have started right at the beginning and have actually completed most of those assessments, but the vast majority of them are still either just getting started or will be getting started here in the next week or two. So we'll really start getting busy for those assessments. And then the last one that I'll mention is we have end of course exams. If you remember, I think it was just the last meeting actually where you guys approved the policy where we changed the wording on those end of course exams. So those will be taking place as well. Of course, because they're called end of course, they'll take place at the end of the course. Technically it's open right now, but you of course want to make sure those kids have an opportunity to see all of that content as possible. So that will be Algebra 1, students enrolled in Algebra 1 and English 10, and then also an integrated math course, which is actually only a course that we have at Elko High School. So very few students will be taking that one, but and that will account for 5% of those kids' final grade. So that's the stuff I have for testing. Questions on that one? Got all the questions out of the way with these two, so good job. And then the second thing that on there was just a quick update on school performance plans. So if you remember back towards the beginning of the year, schools completed their school performance plans with goals and objectives they were trying to reach. So all the schools have just completed their first status check. So the plans were finalized and posted on school websites in November. So in March, they completed a status check 1 where they reviewed their goals. They pulled their team back together, reviewed goals, checked to see, are we on target? Are we not where we want to be? Do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to come up with new goals? And so they've completed that process. Those documents have all been submitted to me. I'm working on just kind of reviewing them, making sure they're good to go, and they'll be posted on school website shortly also. So you'll be able to just go to that same place. It's the About Us tab is where all those plans are posted, and we'll put status check in there also so you can check progress of how everybody's proceeding with that. That's it for me.
All right, any
Questions?
questions for Mr. Smith?
Thank you.
Right, you got
Oh,
got off
wow.
easy.
Getting off easy
Thank
today.
you.
Scared of the beard. Good.
All right, any other questions on that item before we move to our consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item 3.1, which is our consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Mr. Anderson, there was one question that I had sent you that involved some nurses looking into some information. Were we able to get that back?
Nope, still learning about it. Bobby Shanks, our head nurse, was not available today, so we did what investigating we could. So no, I have no further information on that.
Okay.
All right. Any other question? Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, we shall proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
All right.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the motion carries. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director.
All right, got a couple things to go over today. First, wanted to start by just talking about the legislature a little bit. We're down to less than 60 days to go in this session. A deadline coming up on the 14th is the committee passage from the first house. Several deadlines coming up, but looking for things to move quick. You've got the weekly report that I sent out regarding that, and it was kind of fun looking down the rabbit hole on a few of these bills. I read all about that Assembly Bill 423 and before you asked us to look into it, but that was just regarding times you can meet. And I was in committee today, so I'll be curious to see what came of that. But that basically said, if we go past midnight, we have to stop and restart at 8 in the morning. So we'll try just not to have those late meetings maybe, and we won't have to worry about it. But keep watching for those. I'll try and get those updates out to you every Monday as they come to me. Lots and lots of good information in there. Lots of good stuff on the committees and also what was discussed in the previous week. So another thing I wanted to talk about was a request that's been put out by NASB for any interested districts to do a presentation proposal for the 2023 annual conference. They would like us to consider submitting a proposal. Let me bring up the sheet right here and I can just go over it real quick. I'll get this sent out to you too. I forgot to get that forwarded with the other one. But the topics, what they're looking for, and it's something interactive where some or all of us would participate in this presentation to be about 75 minutes in length. It's a workshop. It need to be designed to be interactive. So we would ask questions and try and participate, you know, in the same sense as what we have in previous trainings with other presentations. And it's in the general session. So it'd be with the entire group in the big room. But some of the topics on the presentation can be one or all of the following. It's something that's going well for our district, something that we're proud of, something innovative, or something that will help other districts. So I just wanted to kind of plant the seed on that. I'll get the format to you so you guys can all look at it in the next couple of weeks. And at the next meeting during my time, we can maybe talk about that if anybody had an idea for a proposal that we're interested in, then I can help get that put together, and we could probably look at that at our next meeting, 1st of May, and then the deadline to submit that would be May 15th. And then lastly, just a reminder, I talked about it last meeting, so I won't get too deep into it, but we do have the potential or the training for the digital threat assessments that's in Fallon on the 29th of this month. And there will also be a NASB board meeting the night before. And something I just thought about, maybe if anybody has any ideas on that too, and get with me next meeting. But as we're buying books and doing negotiating, that might be something to look at, getting with all our other districts, and buying power can bring prices down. It's just an idea I had right here, but you know, if there's any direction we could go with that, that's something I'd be happy to take to NASB to ask other districts, perhaps if we could get some sort of a co-op or, you know, again, just an idea, just brainstorming there, but wanted to plant that seed. And if you had anything to think about that, again, we can talk about that in the next board meeting right before I go to that NASB meeting and take that information to them. So any ideas you have like that, or even anything else that you'd like me to take to that meeting, you've got one more meeting to think about it, and then we can talk about it in a couple of weeks, and I'll take that out with me. So that's all I had with my time today.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, sorry. Have they already decided their plan for the conference? Like, I'm assuming they probably have some speakers already.
We have a tentative schedule up, and I believe that was actually on the.
And that's fine. What I was asking is, can it be?
Yeah.
Can you suggest, I should say,
Certainly.
that more of the sessions be student focused?
Yes.
Because I
will
would
mention
really
that.
like more focus on students. Like, what can we do as a board to help our students? You know how everyone has said you should be talking about students at least half of your
And
meeting
student
more.
outcomes and
Yeah,
yes.
so I would like to see some sessions.
Absolutely.
I
will
know
take
some of the
that.
other ones are important too, the open meeting law and all of that, but I would like to see some of those too.
All right.
So thank
Yeah.
you.
And I haven't seen an agenda. I'm sure they're, well, in fact, I know they're still working on
Yeah.
it, but this was one of those suggestions
And it
that
may
they're
be too
reaching out
late because
to.
I know we have to plan.
Well,
this
and that's
in
something
advance.
that, again, with this presentation proposal, maybe we can take head on. If we have something student oriented, we might want to present on, that could be cool. So, but yeah, absolutely. I will take that feedback back to NASB.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Jeff? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 4.2, items from board members.
I'll just jump on mine real quick because I was looking at my notes and I forgot to ask about it, but I did want to look formally into boarding reimbursement based on a public comment that was brought to us in last meeting where they talked about the $10 day rate, and that's something that has not changed in decades. So as we're looking at budgets and things and trying to save money, I'd like to see if we can possibly spend more there. If that's anything we could look at. So, or some feedback on that possibly next meeting. That's all I had.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Anybody else?
Yeah, I do. Student health, protected health information. I'd love to see the policies and how we do that. All I could find was JCF, rights and responsibilities of student privacy issues. That was the only thing I could find myself, but I'd love to see how that policy goes through with all the protected health information. We are privy to HIPAA information that comes through, aren't we?
And could you please clarify what you're getting at or trying to?
Well, just so
ask?
we do, we have sports physicals that we do, the information that's collected there. We have vaccination status that's collected there. Basically, what's our policies on those things too as well, other than JCF here, or how's it work?
Like our policies on keeping it private?
Yeah, who's privy to it, who's not privy to it.
Oh, okay. I can get more concrete answers for you, but what I would generally say is that anything that has to do with a student's educational record, and this, at least for certain elements, is going to be part of that educational record. In all elements of a student's educational record, parties that need to be privy to it are made privy to it, and parties that are not. So
the other thing was there's a requirement of training, and so I didn't know if that was part of our training too as well. So such as my clinic, my staff is required to have specific training for HIPAA, those types of things. And I didn't see any of that. And so I've just.
Are you suggesting maybe we need to look at that policy?
Maybe, yeah. If you just look at that and see where we're at with that. Let me know.
The number or the coding of it again?
JCF is the current student privacy issue.
Okay.
But if that doesn't apply to this, then maybe it's something that just needs to be clarified. That's all.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Any other items from board members?
Madam President, if I may,
Please.
along with Jeff's suggestion for boarding reimbursement coming up on a hopefully very soon agenda, I'd also like to make sure that we look at Mr. Anderson's evaluation, get that finished. We've talked about.
It was boarding,
Right. Yeah, boarding. Yeah, the boarding reimbursement.
but they said board member.
Oh, no, sorry,
reimbursement. I was like,
boarding.
No, I'm
Yeah, I
not asking.
apologize.
for-
No, no, no. Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, so the boarding
Sorry.
reimbursement, but also the evaluation. I think we need to get that moving. And hopefully now we've got the strategic plan for the district. We've got some other things that we've done. So I'd really love to work on the goals, get the board goals together. I would suggest that we do that as I would think that it would be best to do the evaluation first so that we're not looking at board goals. For future goals, we're doing the evaluation, then we can move into goals because that gives us that opportunity to also use the evaluation as what we're looking at for future goals. And I think that's going to need to be an additional session. I don't think we should do that as a standard meeting. So I think we're going to need to have a special meeting because I believe that this is going to be required to have an open meeting posting. So I think we should go from there and then discuss how we're going to change that evaluation. Because I know that that had come up as well of how do we look at the evaluation? Is this the right format? So I think that those three things we need to tackle hopefully very soon.
Yeah, for me, my opinion is you can't, I mean, yes, you can do an evaluation, but I think we need to have goals so that our superintendent knows what's expected of him. And since we don't have any goals, and not saying he isn't doing wonders, but to me, you're kind of floundering when you don't know what you expect from us. So that's why I mentioned we should have goals first and then.
Right. And I agree with
The
that.
evaluation needs to follow the evaluation needs to be based on our goals. If we have 3 goals or 4 goals, and that's what Mr. Anderson's evaluations are those goals. It's like it's nice that he wears a nice suit and the tie and all of that, but that can be a very simple part of the evaluation. So, and I think that's going to take some time to tweak and work out.
And I'm saying that because I agree 100% with you. Unfortunately, we didn't
Right.
give him
No,
those
I
goals
get
first.
that.
And I think we
I
do need to
totally
do
understand that.
some type of evaluation
No,
now.
absolutely.
And
He
then
needs to know.
absolutely, then
Right.
we do say, great, moving forward now, here's what we're looking at.
Yep.
So that's where I was looking at.
Board with you on
Perfect.
that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I ask some clarifying questions? I agree. I think these are all good things to do. Do you want to give any direction as to do you want so it's out from what I heard, you're interested in the superintendent evaluation to be kind of the first among those. Would you like that for the first meeting in May, or do you want to do it in Hawaii next week or next time, or would you rather wait till we're here in May for that one? Any opinions there?
I think the first meeting in May would be appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I'll-
sounds way better.
I'll jump in. I appreciate all of our communities that are outside of Elko, but the reality is the bulk of our population can easily come to the Elko meetings. And so I think when we have large if items of this nature that aren't immediately pressing, I think absolutely it needs to be held here since Elko Spring Creek makes up 80+% of the population. So I think that's what we should do is keep it in the Elko area.
Okay, so we'll make sure that's on for that agenda. Just so anyone who's listening still and for everyone in here, a board goals workshop. While we would not do that during a regular scheduled meeting, we would schedule that as a separate meeting. It would be subject to open meeting law. So we would make sure perhaps to be expeditious about it. I don't know if do you want to make that an agenda item next meeting to determine a date that we want to do that? So maybe at the Owyhee meeting, we can make that an action item to call whatever a special workshop session. We can have that date kind of nailed down for, assuming you can get my evaluation done in one meeting if you wanted to. something for after May 9th. Is that potentially, I don't know. I'm just trying to
No, I
get your
think that's
brains moving on
I think
this.
that's a great idea to,
Okay.
do it after we do the evaluation with the current evaluation tool we have. Then we meet, do a board goals workshop, training, however we want to, whatever we want to title it, potentially the week following. And once we get those set, then we utilize those goals as the new evaluation tool for future evaluations. But to be expeditious, I'm not speaking for the board, but I am making a recommendation that potentially we do it the following week on the 16th, so that we are moving forward with that. Because we've been waiting on the strategic plan, which is amazing. We're excited to have that. And now we need to get an evaluation done, and then we need to move forward with goals and a new evaluation tool and all kinds of magic. So the goal setting workshop, I believe it needs to be its own session. I don't think it needs to be in a regular scheduled board meeting. So, because the goals of the board should be the board's goals, not the goals of all of our district admin. So I don't think we need to have them spend their time here when the goals should be set by the board. So that's my suggestion, is potentially doing that, but we can certainly think on that and set an official date via a agendized item at our next meeting.
Okay, and then we'll just TBD on when we want to discuss a new superintendent evaluation after the goals have been determined and they've been presented to the public and that sort of process. Okay.
Yep.
And then the boarding contract was mentioned. I know that was entered as public comment 2 weeks ago. Are we asking for us to bring that policy for a first viewing at next meeting? Do you want to have that on the agenda for next meeting?
My request would be, just to see where we're at, what's budgeted, how much it cost last year, how much.
Okay, so information on what the impact is
mostly,
fiscally, and then we can determine if we want to make some suggestion.
Yeah, and if I wouldn't be unhappy at all if you were to see, immediately here's a policy needs change. Here's a recommendation from your office.
We'll agendize that for next meeting.
Thank you.
If I may, to be more direct, I would suggest that at that meeting, we do have that as a first reading, because if we come in as just informational, then we're going to wait another meeting to do first reading, then another meeting to do changes. Whereas if we put it as first reading, we can cover the informational side.
Sure.
If that's all right.
We're saying the same thing.
Okay, cool.
According to our policy, informational and first reading are one and the same at this point. So,
All right, any other items from board members?
I have a
right.
question,
Go
just
ahead,
because
Susan.
my long-term memory isn't there. Last year, Mr. Anderson, did you do a self-evaluation?
that was part of, I don't know if that was something that necessarily, I think that was specifically because I was interim superintendent at the time, and that was kind of part of the process we determined in deciding whether or not I would be permanent or say thank you for your time.
Could we ask you to do a little something so we have that?
You can ask me to do anything. Yeah, that's fine. I can do another self-eval if you'd like.
It's just kind of nice knowing what you think was important that you did. I mean, I kind of like to have your opinion of what you
Yeah,
you
would it
think is
be
important to us.
Do you think it fits with the timeline we just discussed of May, for me to present my self-eval in the same meeting that you're going to evaluate, or would you need that in advance of that? Because if that's the case, then I would need to have that for the Hawaii meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that probably doesn't give you enough time, 2 weeks. So, I mean, I'm okay with it being on the same night, but I don't know what the rest.
I guess the other problem
And
there is
maybe-
we don't have unless we just recycle the same self-eval form from last year. If that's the same eval form we're going to use for this year, then we would just have to go with whatever was from last year.
I think you would just base your self-evaluation off of the current board evaluation
Okay.
tool. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so have that in 2 weeks, or have that in the same meeting as the 9th?
Just jumping in, I think the same meeting's fine. I don't think we need to necessarily use yours to assist in our evaluation. I think it's just a more well-rounded evaluation.
Okay.
And I didn't even mean you had to use that evaluation even. I would be okay with you just saying, here are the important things I think that I've accomplished this year. I'd even be okay with something like that. But that's just my little opinion. That's up
I
to the
will
rest
put
of them.
self-eval for the 9th as well.
Perfect. Any other items from board members before we move on to the superintendent's report?
I do. I'm going to circle back around. I apologize. This kind of goes back to what Mr. Allen was talking about and the Hope Squad, putting a plug out there that on April 29th, there is the 2nd annual Let's Talk About Suicide Prevention and Foster Health, Hope and Healing event. Very long title, but it's 9 to 1. And it does have some information here regarding the presentations of the Youth Mobile Crisis Response Team, as well as a discussion regarding a teen text and caring contacts. So that's the 29th of April, 9 to 1. And I apologize, I believe that it is at the Elko Convention Center.
All right.
That's a Saturday, by the way, the 29th.
All right. Thank you, Matt. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 5.1, our superintendent's report.
Awesome, thank you. So just a quick couple comments on some things that were mentioned. So these are both from what Jeff just talked about. I'm aware of the proposals just earlier this week, or I guess late last week, actually this week. Teresa and I communicated a little bit about it, and I think we're interested in doing something maybe today or yesterday. I emailed all the district leadership to say, hey, what are some things that we're proud of, we want to highlight. So we're thinking about that. And it was last week that it got presented by Rick Harris to us at NAS. And so we're thinking about it already. And so, I mean, I didn't email all of you because we're just kind of infancy stages of thinking about it. But if you have something that you know fits the criteria that Jeff was talking about, please feel free to send me an email and we'll consider that for a potential proposal. But yeah, we're thinking about it. And then I'll have to get for sure confirmation on this, but I feel comfortable saying it. You talked about trying to get buying power with textbooks. I believe when the state does their review of the textbooks that are on the approved list already, those vendors are all required to lock into a certain price for textbooks. That way Clark can't buy textbooks cheaper than Elko can, then cheaper than Eureka can. They come up with a fixed price that, because they are essentially getting it's a state contract for how much we pay for those books. So I don't think there's any more, I don't think we can haggle on the price of the books per se, because I think that's already established by the state. I'll verify that information, but I seem to remember last year when Keith and I put the textbook adoption presentation together, that was part of what we discovered. So I'll for sure report back on that though. Okay.
Jay, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
From what I gather, you have a publisher that sends out textbooks, and then you have a distributor, and we use Mountain States. And Mountain States usually gives us a cut on the shipping, where I'm guessing the publisher does not. So that's where Keith probably saw the savings last year was going through Mountain States.
Yep. Thank you, Candace. Alrighty, just a handful of things to go over. Just want to echo what Paul said. I won't go deep into it, but really appreciated the Hope Squad training we had today. And thanks to the state, thanks to Hope Squad organization, thanks to all this room was full of those people earlier today. We did a quick transformation after the meeting to get ready for the board meeting. But Tam, the gentleman who presented to us, he was effusive in his praise of how our nobody in the room looked bored. Nobody looked like they had to be there. Everyone was very involved, there for the right reasons, excited about what they were doing. And it was just a really positive, sitting through 7 hours of training, even if you are excited about it, is tough to do and with a heavy topic, but they were very engaged. And I think we're going to be successful with the implementation of Hope Squad. If today's first start was any indication, I think we're in a good direction there. So really grateful. And just had a meeting today with a community partner. I'm not going to say too much about it yet because nothing's finalized, but there are entities and businesses that are interested in supporting our efforts to support mental health for kids and staff. And so be it financially or otherwise. And so I'm looking forward to future reports of good things happening on that front. Reminder, one of the pillars of our strategic plan. So we're focusing on that. And on the same topic, I want to make sure y'all are aware of not this Thursday, but next Thursday, the 20th. If you'll recall, last year, the hospital, in conjunction with many other partners, held an awesome week-long event with a fair at Flagview Intermediate. It was called Level Up for Health. They're doing it again at Flagview this year on the 20th, and I think they're doing it at Spring Creek Middle as well, but a different date, I think in May. Different, pretty sure.
I know there's a mental health one
Yeah.
at.
I'm getting there for that one. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm April.
No, you're good. So the exact same thing, Level Up for Health, is also at Spring Creek Middle, May 22 to 26. So Thursday from 5 to 7 at Flagview will be that event again. And then, that is April 20th, Thursday, the 20th from 5 to 7. Yep. Then that same night, not the same entity or same event, Spring Creek Middle is also holding their mental wellness family event, and that starts at 6. And so
And internet safety.
and yes, and the internet safety, cell phone usage, there's lots of different elements of mental health from that perspective. So if you can go to one, or I'm probably going to I'll hit both, a little bit of Flagview at the beginning and then head over to Spring Creek. But those are two just wonderful events on the same sort of topic. So, but not only mental health, but physical health and wellness as well. Kudos to them, and thanks to all of the partners that work with the Level Up for Health. It was so successful last year. They're now expanding it, and they hope to continue to expand it every year. So thanks to, I know Terry Clark has been instrumental in getting that going. A couple other things to keep you aware of. We are going to be interviewing for the Elko High School principal job this week. That's a semi-important position in our district. So we're going to be conducting those interviews. We'll report back to you once that is finalized and a decision has been made. Happy to have renewed our partnership with NNRPDP moving forward. We met with NNRPDP leadership, new incoming leadership this week, and really looking forward to expanding those opportunities across our district and for administration moving forward. Annie's going to be amazing. Looking forward to that. And then just a couple of celebrations real quick. This one won't be quick, but here we go. So we got to recognize Wells's FFA successes 2 weeks ago. We're going to celebrate and recognize the Silver Sage FFA results. That's the group out of Spring Creek High School. To quote Heather, they killed it at state. They received, and remember, anything gold means you qualify for nationals. So they were a gold national chapter, so their entire gold, and then superior chapter gold was Rachel Calvelage. Yeah, did that okay? Oh, awesome. Thank you. So way to go for Rachel. Reporter book gold, that was Highland Burton. Secretary book gold, Lavanna Collins. Treasurer book gold, Trent Sarman. Historian book gold, Ramsey Batari. My apologies to anyone's name that I mess up. In proficiencies, Rachel Calvelage gold. Ag marketing was gold first high team, and that consisted of Highland Burton, Dally Jensen, Rachel Calvelage. The ag mechanics senior team was gold, and that included first high individual of Leah Smith, second high individual Daniel Mendez, third high individual Zane Wines, and fourth high individual Highland Burton. The ag mechanic novice gold team with first high individual Douglas Iliff. And then the other members of that team were Wyatt McLeod, Brock Campbell, Charlie Wright. And then the last gold team I'm going to mention was the ag sales. And that consisted of Charlie Wright, Colton Hansen, Daniel Mendez, and Simon Schaffner, who was second high individual. And then last but not least, 7 individuals received FFA state degrees, and they were Charlie Wright, Colton Hanson, Highland Burton, Elizabeth Perkins, Daniel Mendez, Caden Cunningham, and Ramsey Batari. So congratulations to the Silver Sage FFA and their excellence at FFA State, where they killed it. Great job, Silver Sage. All right, and then last one I want to report on is we did have 3 students compete at the state spelling bee. We did not have an 8th grader that represented, but we did have our 6th grader from West Wendover Elementary, Alonzo Parra. He got 18th place. The word that got him out in the 3rd round was exude. Congratulations to Alonzo. Christian Anderson from Liberty Peak Elementary, 5th grader. He took 12th place and he made it through to the 4th round where he got stumped by the word wizened. And then Matthew McConnell showed up and showed out. He's an Adobe middle school student in 7th grade. He took 7th place in the competition, made it to round 6 where macrocosm stumped him. Super proud of all our students. And I gave you the places 7th, 12th, and 18th, and that was out of 34 spellers at the competition from across the state. So congrats to those students for representing our county and our schools very well. And I will be done with that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any questions or?
Can I add one more to
Please.
that? Mountain View is also having the same type of event this Friday. Their PTA is also putting something on, just to add to that one. So
Great. Thanks, Susan. All right, we'll move on to item 6.1, approval of the accounts payable.
Move to approve the accounts payable.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Abstentions, disclosures?
Yes, I'm abstaining from voting. I have a family member and I get direct benefit directly.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other abstentions or disclosures?
NRS 281A .420 requires me to disclose that I have a close relative who is employed by Wells Rural Electric. I won't be abstaining from voting because a reasonable person in my situation would not be materially affected by this conflict of interest.
All right, thank you. Ditto to Brooke. Any other discussion?
I just have to ask, is there something we can put on the agenda so that you guys don't have to say that every single time? Like, can we just have it in the official record? So,
I
and then
can
she
ask.
can just abstain from voting and you can abstain from saying it and then you can abstain from ditto. So
I can ask
Okay.
if we can,
just see if we can
just
do
put it
but
on
just-
the. put
Yeah,
it
just
on the
shut it
agenda.
down. You guys don't have to worry about it. And
Or
then
if it
you
has
just
to
do
be
what you're supposed to do.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I think that the abstention has to be stated every time, but I think what Rob said, or sorry, our legal opinion was that you don't have to read that huge disclaimer every time. You've done it. I think you only technically needed to do it once, but you've done it 3 or 4 times now. So I think we're good to go there.
So I still do need to disclose.
Yes, you can,
That
I
I'm
say
not
you still do need to disclose, but
Yes, I
yeah,
do.
I don't think we have to
Yeah.
read the NRS.
But you don't have to
Yeah.
read the whole NRS thing. Yep.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
just
that is-
disclose and then say.
I'm disclosing that I have a member, but I'm not
But
abstaining.
I will not be
Yep.
abstaining.
Will do.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the accounts payable before we vote? All right. All in favor of approving the accounts payable, please say aye.
I,
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and with 1 abstention, the motion carries. Item 7.1 is a final opportunity for input from the public. Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.